No, no, está acá.
Se lo pones tú cuando viene, no hay problema.
Lo que pasa es que yo voy a estar acá más que todo.
Quien esté acá de la universidad.
Canal 2.
Quien esté acá de la universidad, sí lo pone.
¿Ya? Sí, porque yo tengo que estar atrás también. Y si en caso que él quiera uno de estos nomás, entonces se conecta acá.
Y ese canal 2.
Canal 2. Y esta es el volumen. Ya lo dejé en canal 2. Sí, porque a mí no me va a dar tiempo de venir desde allá. Sí, sí. Antes, incluso antes, cuando él llegue.
Podemos ponérselo en la silla del presidente.
¿Dónde se va a sentar? Los demás, de las mesas también tienen las sillas. Testing 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 testing 1 2 check 1 2 1 2. Check 1 2 1 2 1 2. Oscar. Testing 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 check 1 2 1 2 1 2. A ver, un momentito. Testing 1, 2, 3. Check, check, check. 1, 2, 3. Check, check, check. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. Sí. Escucha. Testing 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. Check. 1, 2, 3. Check. 1, 2, 3. Check. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Check. 1, 2, 3. Check. 1, 2, 3. Check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Testing 1, 2, 3. Check. 1, 2, 3. Check. Testing 1, 2. Yes, eso. Dile que se... Que check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2, 3. Check, 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 check. 1, 2, 3. Check, check. 1, 2, 3. Check, check. 1, 2, 3. Check, check. Okay, good. Thanks.
Oh no. The sticking out part needs to be on the house.
Yep. Got it. And then I just turn it on.
Yeah,
That's
you
it.
can turn it on anytime. They're
He'll
muted.
mute it.
Yeah, the
Great.
volume's down.
Actually, Eric, why don't you, if you could give me that now, and I'll put on it when I meet him.
Great. Thank you so much.
going to be in the hub. I have a couple things to note that I want to note on my before, and then I'm going to introduce Ambassador Peter, right? Yeah. Okay. But I'm going to thank Enjoy. Yeah.
Lo encontró el baño. Es de la OEA.
Encontró el baño.
Ahora. Sigue con eso.
Tuvo suerte. Porque me parece que estaba buscando la mano.
Yo sabía porque yo estuve ahí en otro restaurante. En ese momento estaba.
No, no se maneja, está todo. Ok. Eso que vamos a hacer. Moviéndose. Está saliendo todo bien, todo bien.
Está saliendo todo bien.
Eso muy bueno. Vamos a quedar.
1, 2, 3, testing, English, testing, testing. Okay, I'm going to go into Spanish channel.
She's a Barker Foundation,
Ah, yeah, of course, yeah.
and her husband is very involved in SEIU.
I would say so.
Bueno. Well, Mr. President, welcome to our smoke-free and tobacco-free campus here at American University. I'm Jim Goldgeier. I'm Dean of the School of International Service. It's just a great pleasure to welcome you all here to our beautiful SIS atrium. And this is a conversation with President Mujica. And he's had very successful meetings with President Obama and Secretary Kerry, but what he hasn't had a chance to do is have a conversation with young people. So I'm just preparing you to make sure that you have some questions that you're thinking of, because I'm going to turn to you when it's time for the Q&A. So please be ready. I want to thank the deans from the other schools who've co-sponsored this event, including Dean Claudio Grossman from the Washington College of Law, who is unfortunately still in Geneva with his work there for the Human Rights Commission Against Torture. And I'm also grateful to the other partners who've worked with us and to the staff at SIS, as well as the embassy staff for making this event possible, and to welcome back the minister and the ambassador to SIS. We've had a great spring of events on Uruguay, and it's really wonderful to be able to continue this. And it's particularly fitting to be here in the School of International Service, not just, again, in our beautiful building, but in a school that is dedicated to the promotion of a more just, peaceful, and sustainable world. I have the great honor of introducing Ambassador Carlos Pita. Ambassador Pita, during the years of military dictatorship from 1973 to 1984, joined in forming the opposition group Popular Nationalist Current. And during the 1984 restoration of democracy, he was elected to Uruguay's national legislature, called the Chamber of Deputies, in the minor party list, Movement for the Fatherland, part of the right of center coalition known as the National Party. When the National Party pushed through a 1986 amnesty law protecting officials who participated in torture and murder under the military regime, Ambassador Pita formed the People's Current, and joined the Broad Front, Uruguay's left-of-center political coalition. He was reelected 3 times in 1989, 1994, and 1999. After leaving the Chamber of Deputies in 2004, he was named ambassador to Chile, where he served from 2005 to 2010, then as ambassador to Spain, and since 2012, we've had the good fortune here in Washington, D.C., to have him serve here as his country's ambassador to the United States, and I welcome Ambassador Pita.
Yo quiero agradecer a todos
I want to thank you all
la presencia, a los compatriotas y a las compatriotas que están aquí.
for your presence, all my land's people, and all friends, men and women of the United States who are here. I would like to tell you that my words are of being very grateful in 2 very brief meanings. First, I want to thank the authorities of American University, and particularly I want to thank the authorities of SIS, International Relations, and tell you that the huge that we have, how happy we are that our president can be here with you and with us today. Joe Ehrlich is going to introduce you to the president. But Joe Ehrlich is a friend. For me, he is the greatest friend of democracy that Uruguay has had in the United States during the hardest and most terrible time of the history of Uruguayan contemporary history and times. Joe Ehrlich, with his courage, now then, back then and now, opened all the ways for those people who were struggling for freedom and democracy in the United States would be heard in the U.S., in Congress, in the different offices of congressmen and senators, and would be heard in the White House as well. Of this American university, we found people like Joe Ehrlich. Some of them we could honor on behalf of Uruguay, like we did with our Foreign Service Minister. It is a great honor for us that our president will speak to you here, and here, which is a demonstration of recognition and feeling and gratitude that the Uruguayan people have toward those who helped us out during our most difficult times. That is the deepest feeling, and no doubt that beyond the wonderful meeting we had with President Obama, with our Foreign Service officer and minister, Mr. Kerry, Commerce Department, and the authorities that we will continue to meet, this is probably the activity that our heart really is most joyful with. And we're very happy. There's nothing nicer to thank people who deserve it. Thank you, American University.
Señor embajador, muchísimas gracias por sus palabras, pero te pasaste.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you for your words, but you really went way out of your way. A little bit exaggerated, but thank you. Thank you. We're very, very honored to have you here. It is for us a very special privilege. And I'm going to speak somewhat in English, but my heart is half-half.
And I want to thank especially WOLA, who's a co-sponsor, the Center for Latin American Latino Studies, co-sponsors a number of people who came together, the people who made this thing possible, Hadar, Juan, the law school, so many people brought this together. I will say that during my first visit to Uruguay And it's a real privilege to be here, to see all these young people. In 1973, the person that I'm privileged to introduce was in prison, not any prison. He spent several years without seeing the sun at the bottom of a well. A year later, when I was working with the Washington Office of Latin America, WOLA, I learned about President Mujica and many other political prisoners in Uruguay from my colleague and close friend Juan Raúl Ferreira. It's hard to imagine, but during the years of dictatorship, there were more political prisoners per capita in Uruguay than any country on earth. After democracy was restored in 1985, he was finally released, but his suffering, I think, was not in vain. For him and the people of Uruguay became a redemptive experience. He has taken that torment and, quoting Dr. King, transformed the deep gloom of the old age into the exuberant gladness of the new age. It is this capacity for forbearance and forgiveness that brings about miracles. Now, I've been given many privileges over the years, but none, frankly, this ranks at the top. Not only is he a president, he has redefined who a president is, what a president does, and how a president lives. This president doesn't live in the White House, he lives in a farmhouse, off a dirt road outside of the capital of Montevideo. His water comes from a well. He is his own gardener, being a former minister of agriculture. The security around him is not really lax. It doesn't exist. I take that back. It's my understanding that his 1987 VW Beetle has seatbelts. In our country, so much about politics is about money. For President Mujica, politics isn't about money. He turns back 90% of his salary to charity. So where does this president get his inspiration? I think from within. No one has a stronger moral compass. His North Star revolves around freedom anchored by integrity. More than any other president, he has been able to translate those core values into policy. A short list would include marriage equality, protecting the rights of women and agricultural workers. He was instrumental in creating a new innovation in protecting human rights, the National Human Rights Institution and Ombudsman. He also brought children suffering from the trauma of the war in Syria to his farmhouse. Yet he gently lectured President Obama yesterday about the high rates of smoking in the U.S. and his efforts to curb the use of tobacco led the Philip Morris Company to sue. That's chutzpah. I think that's chutzpah. It's true that no good deed goes unpunished. And como dijo nuestro querido decano,
as our dear dean has said, so that you know, I have not allowed smoking in any part of the university, but it is allowed to speak Spanish in any part of the university. I'm very happy that yesterday you gave Mr. Obama a lesson in Spanish, and it was for free.
It has also been reported in newspapers that Uruguay is trying to help the Obama administration receiving detainees from Guantanamo. Ustedes, el Uruguay,
you in Uruguay are an example for the world in many things, and why not in this matter as well?
You know, Uruguay has received a lot of attention by becoming the first country in the world to start regulating marijuana from seed to sale. This stunning decision and enactment of these regulations comes less than 2 years after President Mujica first suggested a radical departure from the U.S.-backed war on drugs as a way to undercut criminal gangs. As The Economist magazine noted in declaring Uruguay Country of the Year, These are path-breaking reforms that do not merely improve a single nation. If emulated, they might well benefit the world. Cervantes in Don Quixote observed
that being very fat may be mad.
Much sanity may be madness. And maddest of all is to see life as it is and not as it should be. Presidente Mujica sees life not as it is, but as it should be. Él ve la vida no como es, sino como debe ser. He understands that we don't have to be successful in the conventional sense, only valuable. We don't have to make money, only a difference, particularly in the lives of society that society counts least and puts last. About this courageous act of taking the profit out of drug trafficking, he's quoted as saying, "We're not recommending that smoking marijuana is good like the poets say. No addiction is good. The only addiction I recommend to young people is love." Mr. President, I believe love measures our statue. The more we love, the bigger we are. Using this yardstick, President Mujica is a giant of a man and a magnificent president. El amor es la medida de nuestro.
Love is the measure of our statute. The more we love, the greatest we are. And like that, President Mujica is a great man. We're very honored that you're here with us. And in order to honor you even more, I'll take my tie off. What is going to happen now is that we're going to invite President Mujica, together with our dear Dean, Jim Goldgeier, to come here so that we can have a chat.
We're inviting you both up here to have a conversation. And since this is a conversación con jóvenes, we expect, as the Dean said, that you jóvenes are ready with some questions. So we invite President Mujica a venir acá y listo.
So please come here and, well, let's get ready so we can have a nice conversation.
Estoy juntando aparatos de esto.
I am really collecting these devices here.
Well, again, President Mujica, thank you so much for being here. What the heck? Oh, I have my mic on the tie. Never mind. I can't do it. I said to my wife this morning, he's not going to wear a tie. Do I need to wear a tie? And she said, yes, you need to wear a tie. All right. It's such an honor to have you here. I wanted to start by asking you a question that really comes from the work of our dear friend whom we lost earlier this year, Professor Robert Pastor, who really dedicated his life and career to the promotion of democracy in this hemisphere. And your country has moved so far forward on really deepening the democratic fabric of our hemisphere and is really on the leading edge. And there are pockets still that either remain undemocratic or are more authoritarian than they had been previously. And I would like to start by asking you how you see your role and the role of your country as part of the hemispheric and global efforts to promote greater democratization.
Dear friends, particularly young people, we believe that democracy What is democracy? What is democracy? Well, etymologically speaking, what is it? Always? Our hemisphere has invented a way of the very many forms and shapes that the idea of democracy can come about. There's huge advantages. It's never considered perfect. And therefore, it is not absolute. It is never considered complete. And ultimately, it may have a constitution and it may have a way, a manner of law, but it's a philosophy of man to see and view Earth. In first place, democracy is to learn how to live together and to put up with the people who think differently. That's simple. It is a sort of tacit pact, collective pact of having different viewpoints, be able to have different viewpoints, and not so much taking decisions. Mostly we attempt to talk on behalf of a majority. But surely, forcibly, we could think that democracy that we have invented in the West is more perfect than the one for Pericles. But an Indian, an Abimaran Indian from the mountains who gets together in an assembly once a year to choose their leaders, surely is going to believe that their way of democracy is better because they will say so directly. Sure? What is true is that this more modern history began here. You have a huge responsibility, a huge responsibility to have the source and the origins. And the question is this, your democracy, is the one that Thomas Paine was dreaming about, or someone else? Is it ill? Does the democracy have diseases? We have learned in South America that democracy is not perfect, that there are obstacles, that you need to be assertive of it every day. It's a form of education and to live together. But basically, in a society, you must take decisions. Somebody has to be the decision maker. And those decisions must to be in tune with what people feel and the interest of the majority. But naturally, there are huge differences in a society, and they're there. And each one is fighting for its own. Some more aware, others not so much. Some may be doing it strongly, and more or less, it depends. But actually, our greatest pathology has been demagoguery, populism. And in North, perhaps the worst disease is in the lobbies. The weak do not lobby. Lobbying is always done by those who are stronger. So, more than ever, we should remember that our democracy is not concluded, it's not complete. There is a democracy we need to fight for. We need to improve it today, here and everywhere. You and us. We haven't reached the last echelon of the human history, nor is it definitive. It's an open door to continue our struggle and to improve it. Now, well, you need collective beings to struggle and to fight for democracy and construct collectives is not easy and it's not simple. But men alone, we are not very strong. We are a little bit stronger if we get together with ourselves. But human beings, in order to get together, we have to look at ourselves with a magnifying glass. Because if we look through a magnifying glass, no one's worth for anything. And if everyone is useless, then we're just going to chat or converse in a cafe, in a round table. And we talk about philosophy. We do philosophy, but we will not change society. Oh, wow, this is our little history in Uruguay. Well, we did some crazy things. Oh, fantastic. We recognized that sometimes a man would get together with a man and a woman would get together with another woman, but that's oldest then. We discovered the circle. There's no merit. What we did was accept reality. And like that in other things, because we have decided to get less complicated and to accept people as they are, without wanting to impose on them the way that we think they should be. That is democracy. That's why I think that my job is not really done.
I know that you want to hear from questions from our audience here. I want to ask you one more question before I open it up to everyone. And that is a question about educational exchange. There are a number of countries that have supported students to study in the United States. For example, Brazil has provided funding for students to study in the United States and other countries overseas. And your approach, you have argued that you'd prefer to bring professors from outside of Uruguay to teach your students in the country. And I was just curious to know whether you plan to introduce any legislation or support for bringing those faculty from outside of Uruguay to the country to teach students there.
Sí, efectivamente.
Yes, indeed.
Cuando se viene del mundo rico,
when you live in the rich world, life is viewed in one way. When you come from the poor world, you see it in a different way. When our people, our young people come here, they live in big country and cars are big, all of that. And they feel a very strong cultural impact. And I don't even let you know, tell you if they fall in love. And it's difficult to find young people that do not fall in love. If they don't fall in love, there's something strange there. Result. Frequently, he lost his microphone. He's lost his microphone. He's lost his microphone. Thank you. Can you please place his microphone? I get a lot of interference and cannot hear him. Further up, please. Every time you plug something in, it gets complicated.
No se preocupe.
Don't worry, don't worry. Thank you.
Entonces los perdemos.
So we lose them.
Pero tenemos nuestra historia.
But we have our history.
Gente que vino de
People who came from Germany, from the United States. We are an agricultural and cattle country, and the School of Veterinary here came to seek for one here in the United States. They found the best one, and he founded the school, and that was reproduced and multiplied by hundreds. And our first system of research was done that way too. And the School of Agronomy, well, they brought an agronomist from Prussia. And in the best time of Prussia, culturally speaking, and the school had a regulation that if we read it nowadays, it would be funny. It even stipulated the time to get up, to take a bath, and so forth and so forth and so forth. It was a whole piece. And how much did they leave behind? And so many more. We are the descendants, and we have a common origin, and our common origin are ships. And then we come from everywhere, and actually, we are a very difficult delivery for people that got together and a place of refuge. But that's why when President Obama asked me to bring some people from Guantanamo, if each one of us and our descendants have people that come from some sort of Guantanamo. That's why. Well, I believe it's basic to take and bring intelligence, be contagious with intelligence. But we also have something to offer and to give. Do you know what we can do? We have the coastline, quietness, small city, human scale, little villages where everybody knows one another, and where women mop the streets and talk to the neighbors with a broom. They carry out society and basic social skills. And in the world today, that is ever more increasingly valuable. It's also a country you can live in. That is why we want professors to come and get us to know us and get to know what it is. Not because we are better. We are not better. We are different. We're never very much in a hurry. We're never desperate to get to our work. There's always a pretext to get to work late or not to go at all. And I say this jokingly, but you need to think that we only have one life, and it's sliding away, and that you cannot buy into life. And what is basic is to live life and not to make life into a prison, just covered with obligations, so as to buy things that very quickly get old and we need to buy new ones, and so until final judgment. So maybe it's not a splendid country to work in, but it's a wonderful country to live in.
I'm looking forward to my semester there. Do you think you can arrange with the provost for me to go on leave for a semester? Yeah, it sounds wonderful. It's just what I need. We're gonna open it up. Do we have microphones? I guess we have microphones placed here and here. Do we have any up above? Amy, are there any microphones up above? Do we have any questions from above? I'll be happy to repeat them. Here's what I ask. Please ask a question, and please keep it short, but start by introducing yourself so that President Mujica will know who you are. And I know we've got some high school students here, in addition to some of our own university students. Is there somebody up there? Yeah, shout it and I'll repeat it. Can you do that? Or we'll get a mic up there. James, can we get a mic up there? Do we have anybody down here while we're waiting? Okay, please, go ahead.
Sure. So my name is Paul Jurado. I'm with the Anti-Torture Initiative. And basically it's a nonprofit organization that works with the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Torture. So as you may or may not know, President Mujica, the UN Special Rapporteur visited Uruguay in December of 2012. And based on that visit, he issued a report several months later. In their report, there were a number of conclusions and recommendations, one of which was that the government should implement and fully support the National Human Rights Mechanism. Another one was that the government should work to improve prison conditions for juveniles, specifically noting issues of overcrowding and other conditions. Now, recently, the National Human Rights Commission issued its own report documenting many of the same problems that were noted before, specifically for juveniles. So conditions of overcrowding, poor hygiene, use of solitary confinement. So these are some very serious issues that were raised in this report. So what I want to know is if you could comment on this report and maybe describe some of the measures the government is taking to respond to these findings in the report. Thank you.
Sí, efectivamente, tenemos problemas.
Indeed, we have problems. We really had overcrowding in prisons, and that was very heavy. And many years without investing monies in the whole prison system. Yes, we're bringing that from way back. And surely it's not enough, because we've had a significant explosion of people who have been arrested because drugs attacked us, because out of 3 prisoners, 1 is because of drug trafficking or as a result of crimes that were caused by drug trafficking. And so this ban really brought about very young people, and drug trafficking, in order to live, needs to recruit and first make an addict out of a person and then keep going in the trade with that workforce who's desperate because of its addiction and results the most efficient. And those are the ones who commerce. You can't separate none of this from what we are trying to do with marijuana and others. Of course, money of drug trafficking doesn't stay in Uruguay. Of course not. Well, ultimately it's going to go into the banking system. And it's even more important, it's sanctified there that money is little and it's in danger. But if it's a lot of money, then, well, it's sacred. Commissions are paid of 30%, etc. And it leaves a whole bunch of chainy things there and in the rosaries. And one of them is this. But I know something about prisons because I was a prisoner, and quite a bit. And I can tell you that the workers today, young people who are arrested and who are working, and in part it's been requested by the unions They have recovered much better than what sociologists and educators have done. It's the workers of the organizations, of the unions that help rehabilitate and rescue people who came out of the criminal world when they were young and are working. And I believe we have 2 or 3 cases that have fallen into recurrency, while those that we are attempting to re-educate will fall back in 60% of them. So to conclude, we need to really appeal to society's strength to carry out and have a policy that will give results and to keep people. Well, that doesn't benefit us a great deal when we talk about recovery, unfortunately. And think about the following when you see those reports. When you arrest a young fellow who has become an addicted and suddenly was removed from it, the guy has something that's called withdrawal syndrome. And when, unfortunately, that person is going through withdrawal, it's very difficult to treat him or her. That's unfortunate. It's another thing that we inherit from the drugs. And this task is far from being finished, very far from it. But I believe that we're walking the walk. And I'm sure that there's always something that will remain to be done. Today, what we're betting on is on asking the cooperation from society, mainly in the workforce, and to trust less in how we rehabilitate in a traditional manner. And I will stop here.
Please. Okay, my name is Henrik Voss. I'm here with there are several people here in the audience who are involved with the School of the Americas Watch, with a movement that is trying to shut down the School of the Americas, the U.S. military training school that has trained some of the worst human rights abusers in the Western Hemisphere, death squad leader, dictators. And yeah, thank you so much for talking to us here today, because I think as social justice organizers in the U.S., we have a lot to learn from Latin America, because here in the US we have not been able to hold any of the people accountable who trained, armed, and funded the military dictatorships, and who still continue to do that today now with the coup in Honduras. So we take a lot of hope from the changes that have been going on in Latin America over the last 15 years. And also we were tremendously excited when Uruguay announced under Vázquez Tabaré in 2006 that they will no longer send students to the School of the Americas, now under its new name, the Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation. However, now over the last couple of years, it seems like that there are 95 Uruguayans who were trained by the School of the Americas, by the Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation. So my question is if the government of Uruguay is aware of that, given that also sometimes the Pentagon is circumventing the civilian leaderships in Latin America to try to build military-to-military relationships. And the second question would be, what kind of advice would you have for us for social justice organizing here in the US so that we get to the place where a lot of countries in Latin America have gotten to? Thank you.
No me gusta idealizar.
I don't like to idealize. You have many problems because this is a very big nation and there are contradictions here, well, like all societies do. There is no perfect world. There is a whole bunch of life that needs to be built. It's not around the corner that we may overcome certain things. I can reproach a great deal to society and governments and to power that exists in this country. And how could not that be? But I also have a deep gratitude for what all of this means about the science contribution. In other words, there is good and there is bad. You find everything, and in our society we have the same thing. We are spending $2 billion per minute in this world in military expenditures. $2 billion per minute. What, are we coming out of prehistory? Personally, I feel that's not the case, because the phantom of war and military training and everything that that entails is an objective necessity of our societies, unfortunately. And let's not even have a police body. In police bodies, you also find everything, and also there is excess. Oh, well, but if you're going to go to someplace and you see how people speak nonsense and what they do for a football, for a soccer game, and say, well, we're all animals, what humanity is, and all of that is everything included in it. But I take heart to your concern. And I take heart to your concern, because when we were talking about democracy, it meant that we had to be tolerant. That the advantage of democracy is that it helps to live together and respect that which is different. And it guarantees that because it is different, we can live together. But you have to carry that to all societies together. Westerners, we think that we have the panacea and that we have the right to impose how we believe democracy is to others who do not feel about democracy like that and who are almost living in a feudal times on behalf of civilizations, that we want to make progress for these poor beasts. But nobody likes that somebody imposes on them, and they will oppose up to their teeth, and if not, they will invent a way to resist. That means that we still do not have a system of international respect where we can tolerate one another. We're far from it. Work. You work for that world. Young people, I'm not going to see it. For a world that we can live together, that may withstand differences in our history and of cultural roots and reasons that sometimes may seem to us they do not have a reason or may not seem democratic from our viewpoint. But that is the only way to assure in societies that men may live in peace. And if the strongest are not capable of tolerating, then think that the weak will not be able to do that either. That's our humanity. If there is any Uruguayan learning those techniques somewhere around there, this president doesn't know anything about it. But if you see things, take note. Take note. We have the armed forces that are sort of international police who go where they whistle at them and they ask them to help somehow for missions of peace. That's the major objective. I believe they ask of us that because they know that we are cheaper because we're underdeveloped. But when things get thick, we see that there are interests meddling there, and that we understand we have nothing to do right there. I'll be clearer. In missions of peace, where they ask for a presence, to whistle and try to keep away, that's what we are. In missions of imposing something, we try not to be there. Because if peace has to be imposed, it's no longer peace. That is contradictory, right? Well, but we really move around with those limitations. Now, well, young people, there's a lot of young people here. I would like to leave with you a message. Not for you to agree with me, but to think about. I think we're coming into different times, tremendously different. The speed of communication, the degree of information. In the next 30 to 40 years, the world is going to be bilingual. There's no longer going to be a mother tongue, and probably everybody will speak English so as to get along. National cultures will not disappear, neither local factors will, but we are creating a global type of culture of which you are a part of. And your victims, victimees, and victimors. And I say so in a general paradigm that young people are beginning to have everywhere. But this world is rapidly getting smaller, and there is an increasing agenda of world problems that no one deals with, and we cannot even organize that agenda. Governments, even those governments of the most important countries like this one, like Germany, like China, are concerned with their GDP growth and in the financial crisis. And who is going to win the next elections? And they reason, and in the best of ways, they do that with a mentality of a national state. Meanwhile, the problems of the world that no country can really resolve get bigger and are there. So 25 or 30 years ago, we were told in Kyoto about climate change and the atmosphere. And they've told us already about the oceans. We're organizing a continent of plastic bags in the Pacific. And we continue with the different cultures of accumulating things. Well, we need to continue inventing new things so that people get entertained and buy. And then they entertain themselves in paying bills. And this is so in the entire world. The phantom of the chiefs of economies, ministers of economies, they cannot stop growth. We have international trade so filled with agreements of free trade that it is so complex that you need to put, like I said today, a green light or lights, traffic lights to understand it. Meanwhile, we exchange a rubber unit. It's going bigger, it's getting smaller, and it's out of our control. Look, this is crazy. You cannot discuss this anywhere. We don't discuss how long a human being can work. And in the interest of competition, in some places they work 10 or 12. In other places they improve. And so they work 6. And what does the little human animal do? Well, they get another job. And we call that freedom. It's true, it is freedom. Freedom to die of a heart attack. We are being aggressors of our nature. Let's be clearer. Young people, we need world governance. We need an order of agreement, something in the entire world. Instead, what are we inventing to do? To build one block against another. Instead of struggling toward integrating the world, we are going to begin struggling to disintegrate it, one block against another. So now we have to get together with Europe to attack China. Well, quite a job. No. Look here, if the rich world gets together, the other ones, we remain, we get with a rancor in us against China and the world, then where does the world go? No, we spent 40 years attempting to build a trade system that is open. And what have we done with the CM? What we did is regress. What we've done is bury it. There's an objective trend towards globalization. But what's failing is politics, the polity. The ecological crisis is a result of the political crisis. We have invented a civilization that has no government, or rather said that it's not the rate of yield of the financial system. Everything else is sacrificed under that altar. You young people belong to that world. My world, we thought in base of national estimates. My world thought in terms of ideas and the dream of continental unity, at least in relative terms. It's not even enough. It's another story. Now we have to start and think about the whole world. The Africans now drowned in the Mediterranean trying to reach Europe. And Europe is concerned to build fences and barriers. And instead of really trying to combat poverty in Africa so people don't have to run away. And everybody tries to fit in here, and you're going to continue to fight. And then you invent laws for residency and pim pam, but people are still going to try to get in. Because the problem lies in realizing that poverty doesn't belong to Juan, Pedro, John, and Peter. It's the humanity, and we need to think in terms of humanity. If the universities don't think like this, if they don't think about the future world of the universities and intelligence, don't expect that the multinational system is going to think about it.
So it looks like we were able to get somebody from upstairs downstairs. So let's, I'm going to actually take two questions. We'll take yours and we'll take the gentleman to your left since we bumped you for her. So.
Thank you very much. President Mujica, I was wondering...
Will you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Raina Weinstein, and I'm a 10th grade student at the Sidwell Friends School. I was wondering, as a former guerrilla fighter and a pioneer, really, in alternative methods to stopping the illegal drug trade, I was wondering what you would say to guerrilla groups like FARC that have turned to drug trafficking.
Okay, so a drug trafficking question, and then can I get the other question also?
Hola, muy buenas tardes, Presidente Mujica. Soy José.
Good afternoon. I'm José Mejía, and I'm from Ecuador. I was raised here, and now I have a special place for Uruguay in my heart. I'm a student here in American University. I want to focus on the time you were in prison. Where did you find the strength that day after day you were in that well and think that, yes, I can come out of here and make a difference and get out of those very dark times? Did you sometimes think about that one day you were going to be president of the republic?
No, muchacho.
No, my friend, no.
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 Yo pertenezco a una generación
I belong to a generation like so many others,
que produjeron las ciudades, los pueblos, los
resulting from the cities, the villages, and the fields of Latin America.
que soñamos
We dreamt
con la posibilidad de construir un
with the
mundo
possibility to build a world
donde lo tuyo no nos separara,
where what is mine and yours did not really divide
era
us,
posible
where it would be possible, so we thought,
con las teorías de nuestra época, de nuestro
in
tiempo,
our life and in our time, to build with the tools that we had in our times.
pero no éramos héroes,
But we were no heroes.
éramos muchachos como cualquiera.
We were young guys like any one of you.
Y yo no me di algo, a mí no un pozo crucero.
And I did not fall into a well just because I was a hero. I was there because I was caught. I was caught.
No, no tenía vocación de bronce.
I didn't have any vocation about being a hero at all. No, not at all. And when you try to change the world, well, that's the least costly one.
Y pasé mal.
And I had a bad time.
Pero tal vez me encontré conmigo mismo.
But maybe I found myself, and this is what I wanted to convey to young people. Where did I take my strength out? Well, I don't know. The human being tells you to.
Derrotados son aquellos que dejan de luchar.
Those who stop fighting are the ones that feel,
La vida es una lucha permanente.
Vince, the life is a permanent struggle. To live is to stand up again and have the courage to
Y en todos los órdenes de la vida,
start anew in every means in life, every way in life. And maybe some of us were somewhat peasants, less sophisticated if you want, or more primitive if you want,
con la fortaleza de lo
with the strength that what is primitive gives you.
es posible.
It's possible.
No sé.
I don't know. But
Es posible encontrar fuerza adentro de uno mismo.
it is possible to find the strength within oneself. You need to look for it.
No se sientan derrotados.
Don't feel defeated. Don't feel defeated when something happens and your job or the love you had tells you no, no more. Try to live again. The world isn't over.
Vuelvan a arrancar.
Start again. But fight to become good. Fight against the beast that you carry from within. Try to hold the beast back, the one within you. In that work is happiness and gratitude.
Va a haber un mundo mejor.
There's never going to be a better world if we're not capable to fight and become better ourselves, each one of us.
Pero cosa curiosa.
But curiously,
Y esto está muy
and this is very thought through,
bien solo.
I would not be who I am had I not lived under those circumstances.
¿Qué quiere decir?
That means
Que a veces el
that
dolor es bueno
sometimes even pain is good
si es capaz de transformar
if it's capable of
en otra cosa.
converting that pain into something else. That possibility, well, everyone has it.
Ese es el canto a la vida
And that is the song to life and love to life.
por el cual hay que luchar individual
And
y colectivamente.
individually and collectively, that is what we need to fight for.
También le tengo que transmitir
But I also must tell you,
que después de la muerte
and probably that after death,
no hay dolor peor que
there is no worse pain than loneliness, the one that bites you, the one that scratches you, that makes you talk to the one that you carry inside yourself, and to really carry out this long monologue trying to sustain oneself. If a day comes that you live through something like that, remember you are strong and that you can start all over, and that it is worthwhile. Well, it never crossed my mind that I was going to be president. What was very clear to me is if I went out, if I got out, I was going to become a military, and I have been working actively 50 years. Yeah, it is possible. It's a question of personality and character. Sure, to the very end, to temerity. It is possible. But, well, what I told you in the beginning, it is good. Lack of being fast. That's why they caught me. I was not fast. That's why I was caught.
Okay. I know we still have the drug question, but why don't we get another one on the table as well? Go ahead. Yeah.
I don't know if this works.
Y traen cables quien ríe de mi prima.
Whoever loves me, this is going to be a fight. Yes, in getting this microphone right. Thank you, everybody here to come here, and I'm Jimmy, and I've been in this university almost 3 days, and my question is on Argentina, about Argentina. While I was studying in Argentina, I went to Uruguay, and I fell in love with everywhere. So I would like to ask you if you have any advice to tell somebody to make a better country like Uruguay, a more just and democratic country.
No es decir que no me encanta Argentina.
It's not to say that I don't like and love Argentina, but well.
Bureau of Tourism has a spot for you in there.
Bueno, quisiera poderte contestar.
I have no microphone. Well, actually, I don't know what they're making me do. I'm talking in German now. Can you repeat what you said, please? Do you want me to repeat the question? I didn't understand anything because this microphone says anything. How can I talk?
Ah, ok. Yo le pregunto.
No, you cannot advise Argentina. You cannot give Argentina any advice. Argentina is simply Perón, and that's not an ideology. It is a gigantic feeling that a considerable part of its people carries, and it is within that feeling you find everything. That's what the world abroad does not understand. Since it's not an ideology and rather an enormous feeling with a very broad majority band, those who are not within that framework and really get to make the mistake of getting to government, the feeling really brings everything together and makes life impossible.
Es un país riquísimo.
It is a hugely rich country, victim of its own richness and its abundance, and it's the closest thing that comes to us. The Orientals, who are guys who, because of our harbor's fault, we were thrown out because of the struggle for harbors, for ports. And we're always in bad shape, and we're the closest you can get. What happens is that since we are at the other side of the river, we look at them. But we've learned, because of our history, that when Argentina does well, we do well, and when in Argentina things go bad, we do bad. 1,000 times we've been together in pain. And maybe where my landspeople really fit, less divided, is perhaps when they are in Argentina. But like any big country, there is an Argentina of the provinces, way in the land, which sentimentally is more united, and it's better understood by Uruguayans. And you have the people of the city, and you have the people of the harbor of Buenos Aires, who is huge. And that's the one that we can always have certain differences. But we belong to the same family, and we live like that, embraced to rancor. We like tango, we like soccer, and so forth. Maybe, politically speaking, we were luckier than they were, because in 1900-somethings, Uruguay went through a process that I would sum it up like that. Social democracy was really founded in Uruguay. Nobody needs to be surprised at the policies of marijuana, openness, and all of that, because our great-grandparents, 1900s and some, did things like divorce because of women's will, like they founded a university so that the family, conservative families, would be ready to send the girls to study. They separately, largely, religion from state and made it the least religious country in Latin America. And way before, 15 years before the dry law here, the state refinanced and financed the act for alcohol in Uruguay. And during very many years, the only ones selling alcohol were those who sold state drinks and alcohol. And it was the wealth of our state. We come from that Uruguay. And of course, it was at times when the per capita income was very close to that of Belgium and France. We're bastard children of the British Empire, and we live the honeys of the British Empire. And when it succumbed, then trade freedom almost kills us. and killed us. The terms of trade changed and another history came. But there, in the back, we can find that very audacious and transforming policy that a country that back when, in those years, founded the bulk of the universities and imposed free education at all levels, and until currently. And we feel proud. That's our history, our identity, that gives us strength, that gives us roots to continue being audacious. Not as much as our grandparents were and our great-grandparents were. But what happens? Since we are a country of 3 million inhabitants, we cannot even move a needle in the world. True, for a long time they told us that we were the Switzerland of the America. We were never Switzerland or anything of that sort, huh? No. But we have had an institutional system of guarantees. I belong to an urban guerrilla movement. I can assure you that politically in Uruguay, any life is worth an enormous amount. In other places in America, a life is worth nothing. But in our country, yes, it's worth very much, very much. That was yesterday and that is today. So in the struggles, in our struggle, and during our dictatorship, military like anyone, and to be active is quite particular. There was a lot of prison, but they tried to save on blood. And well said the guerrillas. But we didn't do it because we were good. You did it because of our national conscience that would put the brakes on all of us. Because politically speaking, Uruguay has its own way. It struggled a lot in our history. Well, we spent our time struggling. All the countries have been like that, with more revolution than herbs. But later with migration was forging us as country, and Argentina was not so lucky. It lived under many coups. 1,000 times they had a coup that crossed their way and crossed their way everywhere. And it had to pay a tremendous price for moments with devastated moments and intellectual. It is easy to criticize it. It would be better to make an effort to understand it. It is a victim of its own history. Well, I don't know if I did answer you.
Did you want to repeat? Why don't you repeat your question that you had earlier?
As a former guerrilla fighter and a pioneer in alternative methods to stopping illegal drug trafficking, what would you say to groups like guerrilla groups like FARC that have turned to drug trafficking?
Sí, te escuché. Hay el razonamiento simple.
There is a simple reasoning. If we went to, and you were in a guerrilla, what would you have to do in the middle of the desert sands? Surely it wasn't going to be drug trafficking, but you would have to invent something else. Well, the drugs were not brought in by the FARC. It was brought in by the history of Colombia. And the FARC had to live and adapt to Colombia.
Droga es, entre otras cosas.
Among other things, drugs are an economic factor.
No deja de ser una demanda.
There is demand for it. And what we're questioning is the fight to take the drug trafficking out of the market. But we're not recommending that people be bohemian and smoke marijuana. It is one thing that we need to really put up with it because people has that addiction. And those arguments that marijuana is better than tobacco or tobacco is worse, one thing or another, what I believe is that there's no addiction that's really good. Any addiction is really a nail. Because if to feel more or less satisfied and happy we need to have a smoke, then we are really doomed. But what happens? What happens? Well, this is like alcoholism. I drink 2 whiskeys and nothing happens, but if I drink a bottle a day, they have to put me into a hospital. So the problem is dimension. So let's put up with the fact that some guy will smoke. It's not such a calamitous sin. But if he's exceeding and he becomes dependent on it, then we need to identify him because that person is sick and we need to treat him. He's sick. But if I have him in an underworld, then we are doomed because when we are going to identify it, then it's gone. And the harm has been irreparable because he's done some sort of crazy thing to buy his drug. And that's where the whole game got complicated. So that's why we believe, we try that that market is ruled by the government so that it can be controlled. This is not the free circulation of marijuana and so on. No, we're not there for that. On the contrary, the problem lies that probably by the 80s there were 1,500 or 2,000 consumers, and now people who study these things, and I don't know how they do that, they say there's 150,000 at least. But while we've had enormous successes against drug trafficking, we put lots of people in jail, we seized a lot of shipments, airplanes, cars, vehicles, we expropriated houses, monies. I don't know, we've had enormous successes, right? But ever increasingly so. How was it done? Oh, coincidence, it happens everywhere. We learn that if you want to change things, you need to do something different. That's where we started that which we are trying to try out. We have no guarantees to give anywhere. We don't know anything. What we know is that what we were doing so far, the only thing it was useful for was to put people in jail, to do all kinds of crazy things, and we're always worse off. We're trying to rationally seek out another way, to take away the business from drug trafficking and attempting to identify consumers without making a fire with them publicly, using the same criteria of financial secrets, but have some way to meet directly to the consumer's needs. If we walk along 2 or 3 years, we may come to some conclusion. Right now we are in be careful and yes and no and all of what follows. We do have resistance. People are afraid because every change entails prevention. The majority in our country does not understand, and the government is ready to take it forward because the majority is not always right, because for the majority it's easy in exploiting people's fears, because this is not nice. And because it is not nice and it's ugly, people are afraid. And since we look at the list of people who are in jail and what's been happening, we understand and realize that if we keep our arms crossed, we will have more and more people in prison. We have spent a fortune in building prisons, and we still have excess of population, like somebody was pointing out. We have 3 times more prisoners. We have built 4 times more prisons, and we're coming from behind. And how much does the prisoner cost? How much does a prisoner cost to society? Well, you would fall into your back the fortune that we are wasting. So, it seemed logical to begin and review all of these things. If this doesn't work, then we'll have to say so, honestly. Now, if it works, we are asking you to recognize things as such. But in life, we have to work in thunder, and for someone else it would rain upon. I hope that FARC make peace with the Colombian government. And we all should make the efforts to help out. Because those who know what the mountains of Colombia are like, well, war makes no sense. It's unending. And you cannot ask a society to make such a sacrifice economically. You have to help the FARC and the government to come and find a way out. War is not justified in any way. Almost nowhere nowadays. Some years ago, we did think that there were new and older wars. The new ones were those who were covered by a just and noble cause, like the freedom processes. Nowadays, with technology, communication, and science such as this, the war ends no matter what its way is, ends up doing a sacrifice for the weakest people in a society. And you have to struggle in the interest of negotiation and negotiate to the last final judgment. And the worst negotiation is better than the best war. And that's what I think about today, because I know the pain and sacrifice of war, and I know the beauty of life. And you do not need to condemn to the needs of war anyone. Much to the contrary. It's good, young people, that you discuss it. It's not like peaceful little swallows. No. It's to be in touch with the weak, to cooperate. In every war, those who pay for the largest sacrifice are the old people and the children and people who have nothing to do with it.
I need to stay on friendly terms with the embassy, so I need to keep the president on his schedule. We are grateful to you for being here today. I want to note that this school was founded in 1957 to wage peace, and we take that very seriously and greatly appreciate your remarks in this area. And President Mujica, we're just honored to have you here today. You're always welcome back here at the School of International Service, and grateful to all of you for joining us today. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias y un abrazo a todos.
Thank you. And hugs to everyone.
Headsets on the tables in the back. On the chairs. Please leave your headsets on the chairs. Thank you. Gracias.